Welcome back, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast, the college offseason podcast, where you could say we're less of the regular season, but more of the offseason. Some big takeaways from last episode. Ryan and is doing a Rocky promo leading up to our game when we play in the new college football video game. Bean is clearly better than Airbud. Matt has beef with Pickles, and a lot of Kendrick Lamar references, even though given certain videos posted as of recently, I think we all know where I stand on that.
I'm going to avoid that for now, but just remember, folks, that the Les's opinions are not my opinions, okay? Especially when it comes to music.
That's true, because Matt and I have a very different demographic when it comes to music.
Yes, we do. Very, very different.
You listen to like elevator music.
I do not listen to elevator music.
Are you sure? Because like some of the playlists you be playing sound like elevator music.
No, not elevator music, not intentionally. Now,
Well,
if a
keep in
song is
mind,
coincidentally played in an elevator, I can't control that, Les. I'm not a hotel, so
I am a FedEx delivery driver and I spend a lot of times in elevators when I deliver to businesses with multiple floors, so I would know firsthand.
I can't control what businesses do, man. I can't.
Well, that sounds like a you problem.
Huh. Wow. Thanks, Les.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here
Thank,
for.
thanks, Les.
So it's just me and Matt on the show today. And in case you were wondering what inspired my name, Bullied by EA Sports, even though Ryan is not going to be on this episode, he has stuff going on. He did want it to be known that EA Sports is totally bullying me because with one of the first highlights we got from the new video game is a clip of Ollie Gordon, a player that I've been very critical of on the show. And I just want to
Critical.
say that I feel personally attacked.
That's what you get for being a hater, Les. You are the king of the Ollie Gordon haters.
I think about starting my own group about it called the OG Haters.
The OG haters.
The OG. Wow, so many OGs. You know, it's funny that you are an Indiana fan and, OG, probably thinking of OG Ananobi.
Yeah, that's true. No, he was. We called him. I remember there were people calling him OG, and I was like, that's too many G's, people.
It's too
Too
many
many.
O's, too many O's, too many
Too much
G's.
confusing. We're getting close to goo, so let's not do that to the poor guy.
Hey, I don't know. I mean, Goo's not the worst thing you can call a player.
I don't know. I don't know. There's something about that just doesn't sit right with me. But yes, I did see that they were bullying you, and now I've brought Kirk Herbstreit here to yell at you even more.
I'm waiting, Kirk. Where you at?
That would be hilarious if like Kirk Herbstreit was here and he's like, Les, you're an idiot. They'd be like, what?
Well, it wouldn't be the first time I've been called an idiot.
Yeah, but it'll
And
be
it
the
won't
first
be
one
the last.
by Kirk
It won't be the
Herbstreit.
last either.
By Kirk Herbstreit either.
When has
Chris
Kirk
Fowler,
when has Kirk
that's,
Herbstreit called me an idiot? I don't even think Kirk knows who I am.
he's waiting, Les. He's outside your house right now. Chris Fowler's in your closet. It's over.
I'm gonna avoid that pun that I was about to say, but hey,
I know
you
that
kind of
was
said,
that's foul behavior. I know.
yeah, it's foul behavior. But anyways, before we get into the meat of what we're going to be talking about today, I do want to add that Jordan and Devin Coleman commit to Texas. Texas adding new offensive line for the class of 2025, which is double trouble for the SEC. And Boise State and Appalachian State have a home and home series in 2025 and 2027 because, it's not a Less is More sports podcast without shouting out Boise State. But to officially get into the meat of the content we're talking about today, DJ Wagner finally commits to Arkansas because we were just waiting on it to happen. But that's not specifically what I want to address. What I want to address is the caption that I got from the Score app when it happened, where it said Cal keeps raiding Kentucky. And Matt, I feel like you and I are on the exact same page on this caption, so just get right into it.
It's not really rating if like your entire roster was committed to you before and is following you. That's more of just like I'm following my coach. He's not. It's not like John Calipari went to BYU and stole all the players before they could follow Mark Pope, or he's stealing the guys now. He's just getting dudes who had committed to John Calipari and taking them to Fayetteville instead of Fayette County. It's really not that hard to understand. I guess we're trying what we're trying to do here is we know that it's going to be an epic season with this, so we're trying to build the narrative more and more of like, ooh, Cal versus Kentucky. It's going to be lit. It's going to be fire. And instead, we're just kind of throwing a little bit of logic by the wayside for the sake of storytelling, which we do that all the time with historical things. So it really doesn't matter that much. But yeah, I don't see how it's rating when like literally every dude outside of like Jonas and John L. Davis, were like already committed to John Calipari already, either in the recruiting ranks or at the school already. So to me, it's not rating if guys are just following you. Like this is the new era of college sports. People are loyal to the people who brought them there. You dance with the guy that brought you, to use like the old adage of like proms and weddings. So they're following the guy. La Familia is not strictly limited to Kentucky. It's where the familia is. So yeah, I don't get that at all. It's not rating if it's just number one, a smart business move to go get the guys you've been recruiting for years and years to go with you, and two, it's not a rate if they're in the transfer portal and they're following the coach that brought them there. So don't get that angle at all, other than the sake of having another good storyline for when College Game Day inevitably goes there in January.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the most clickbait titles in the history of clickbait titles. And I just think it's funny that Kentucky fans thought they were committed to the university. Well, pause. They actually were. But the problem is they were committed to Calipari University. And now, as good of a coach as you and I think Mark Pope is, I look at this Sweet 16 roster that Kentucky has built, and keep in mind that is including the new commitment from Jackson Robinson. And I just look at it and think if Calipari ever assembled this type of roster in Lexington, all I gotta say is hide your couches because there's going to be a riot. Like it's wild. I mean, the level of aura surrounding both coaching tenures is something you and I have talked about endlessly on this show. And there's just levels to this, man. It's just not the same. And don't be wrong, like you and I have said, Mark Pope is a good coach, and I'm sure he will do fine. But will he do good enough for Kentucky standards? That is yet to be seen.
Well, let's be honest. Kentucky's standard would probably just be making it past the first round into the Sweet 16, like we've said as of late. And I think that's what the fans have been telling themselves the entire during this entire situation is like, at least we won't lose to Oakland or St. Peter's again. At least we're going to the Sweet 16. It's like, yeah, but and you bring up an interesting point where it's like if this was just a random year of Cal and this was a roster, like you said, there would be even more belly aching going on. But situations change, and now we're talking about Sweet 16 Kentucky with Jackson Robinson and not any of those five-star All-American dudes. So it's funny how like a month changes everything.
And I think this goes back to a point I made on a previous podcast where I think Kentucky fans could also get into a situation where they feel complacent. They get trapped into the feeling of, we're not losing in the first round like we have the last couple years or last 5 years or so. And then they ended up peaking in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. And we're going to look back on this when this is all said and done, and we're going to think, well, Cal may have had his issues during the latter part of his tenure, but at the peak of his tenure at Kentucky, I mean, it didn't get much better than that.
No,
But if we look at the peak of the Mark Pope tenure, which is where I think it's going to go and peak in the Sweet 16 Elite Eight, Kentucky fans are going to go back and look at this and be like, yeah, I wish we could go back to Calipari. This is wild. That's just where I think this is eventually going to head. It may not be felt within the first couple years, but when it's all said and done, I think it will.
we'll have to see where the future lies. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think clearly, as you could tell, me and Matt are not fortune tellers. We don't see the future. As many things as we've gotten right on this podcast, there's a lot we've gotten wrong too. I think that's also worth noting,
That is also very worth noting.
which is a terrible PR thing for me to say. Like, why am I admitting that we get stuff wrong? I'm basically telling you all not to listen to us. It's
It
wild.
means we admit our mistakes, dang it. That's what it means.
Yeah, it does show a level of humility on our parts. So
We
we do
sat
have
down,
that going for us.
sit down, be humble.
And the Kendrick Lamar references continue. I love it.
I tried my best. That's what matters here, folks.
It does. Moving on to the next topic that we want to talk about and where this impacts college basketball is that a lot of stars are going to be returning to college basketball because a lot of big name players have withdrawn their name from the NBA draft. You know, you have the AJ Stores, Mark Sears, Jaron Stevenson, Caleb Love, Alex Caravan, Hunter Salas, and Peyton Standiforth. And with all these players that are coming back to college basketball, Matt, who do you think this benefits the most?
Well, it's intriguing that we're if you ask me right now, and I know like it's June and this very rarely happens, but Caravan and Sears going back to their schools, I think those two schools should be in the Final Four again, honest to God. Because I mean, Caravan is a glue guy on a already elite team that's added some very good talent in UConn, and we've already gushed about Alabama ad nauseum, and now you're adding in the dude who made it all happen last year to giving him back with Grant Nelson and going out and giving him Chris Youngblood and Cliff Omiori and a bunch of new guys to play with. I mean, UConn and Alabama should definitely be back in the Final Four conversation. In fact, I would argue that they're probably both favorites to be back there. But if you ask me who the most impactful player that you talked about was, it's really, honestly, and I'm not doing this for the memes, I swear to God, it's probably Peyton Sanford going back to Iowa. That totally kind of shifts the trajectory of their season from, we're going to be pretty bad in the new Big Ten or struggle on the new Big Ten. We're probably at least going to be contending for a tournament spot because he's just that good of a focal point for their offensive ball game, and he's that much of a leader that I totally changes the way they look at their season now because that was the big question on every preseason board when you looked at the Big Ten rankings. It was some people were like, if Iowa gets Peyton back, they're definitely top eight. If they don't, they could be down there with Wisconsin in terms of totally depleted teams in the Midwest that are going to have a bit of a down year. So I think that him coming back, I think they are probably towards the top now of the Big Ten. So I think that's the most impactful move in terms of like how it changes a team that doesn't have tournament aspirations, but Caravan and Sears going back, it's just the rich getting richer. There's more money to be made now playing on like a championship caliber team in a place like Tuscaloosa or Storrs, Connecticut, than there is being the 19th guy on the Detroit Pistons or something. I forget if NBA rosters are 19 or 17, but yeah, I mean the most impactful one to me is Peyton Stanford. I think that that's going to shift Iowa fans' expectations not only for the Big Ten, but how close they come to an NCAA tournament berth as well. So there's my guy. But man, when I saw Caravan was coming back, and when I saw Sears was coming back, I was like, they're going back again, aren't they? It was already kind of like they could do it before. And now you're adding back in the veteran leadership, and it's like, yep, yeah, we're gonna have a rematch. Well, not a rematch. We're gonna have a matchup. They're going back. That's all I figured. They're going back.
And I think there are levels to how much each player impacts where they're going back to. Because I look at AJ Storr going back to Kansas, and I look at Mark Sears and Jaron Stevenson going back to Alabama. And that level to me is Alabama and Kansas assembling the Avengers and the X-Men. I mean, they're pretty much keeping a super team build with this one. Alex Caravan and then a player like Caleb Love, I think it's a little different because with Arizona and UConn, there's a lot of moving pieces, and you could say they've brought in some good players, but some unfamiliar players at the same time. I think this was a move that was vital to bring back some familiarity with last year's team. And I want to touch on what you said about Caravan because I look at the players that Danny Hurley's brought in through the offseason with UConn. And I see some very good players, don't get me wrong, Aiden Mahaney, and then through the recruiting cycle, Liam McNeely, one guy that I'm particularly high on a lot. But I don't see a lot of perimeter defense that has made UConn look as good as they have in years past. And so that's where I think Caravan really fits this mold with this new team is that he's probably going to be the best perimeter defender on this UConn roster as of right now. And then being that glue guy to kind of bring everything together, that's where that's valuable. So I think with Caravan coming back, that makes me look at UConn's roster and think okay, they're good, they're going to be exciting, they can score a lot, but how are they going to do on defense? And I think Caravan affects with that. So it's like now they got a shot again from on that side of the floor. And then of course Caleb Love, we know what he can do offensively. I mean, and when he's on fire, when he's hot, I'm a Duke fan. I see firsthand what he can do. And just being able to bring back a weapon like that can really stretch the floor, there's not a price for that. And then I look at players like, Hunter Salas coming back to Wake Forest. And, again, going back to being a Duke fan, I've seen firsthand what Hunter Salas can do. Hunter Salas is a very talented player, one of the more talented players Wake Forest has had in recent years. Notice I said recent years, so no Wake Forest fans come from my neck and say, what about Tim Duncan? No, I'm talking about recently. I was like 4 when Tim Duncan left Wake Forest. That's not recent at all.
Let's hate
But
Muggsy Bogues. That's all I know.
okay, if Tim Duncan wasn't recent, Muggsy Bogues is definitely not recent. I'm not even going to consider Chris Paul to be recent with Wake Forest. Let's be
What
honest.
about the new Chris Paul?
The new Chris Paul?
Remember, I'm the new. I was thinking of those stupid State Farm commercials.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, I think with the current tenure at the coaching staff with Wake Forest, I think Hunter Salas coming back gives them some form of relevancy because he is a hell of a player. And then, of course, I agree with everything you said on Peyton Standiforth coming back to Iowa. So I think we're all on the same page there, just maybe a little differences on both sides of the equation.
Happens.
It happens.
We agree with subtle disagreements.
I think that's what makes this show great.
How much of your Yukon takes are influenced by your recent Twitter interactions, I wonder?
Not a lot, actually. I don't have an issue with UConn themselves. I have an issue with UConn fans being so butthurt about not landing Cooper Flag.
He should have gone to Maine anyway. We've established that.
Matt would have been, I don't know what Matt's reaction would have been if he actually went to Maine.
I think I would have cried on the podcast about how beautiful it was, but that's a story for another time.
And just really bringing the light. He's the mid-major savior.
Yeah, I am. I am mid majors all the
I
way
was
down
saying
to
Cooper
NIL.
Flag is the mid-major savior, not you.
Oh, I am too. Damn it!
All right, talk yourself up. I like it.
And everybody from the mid majors to NAIA, baby, I love them all.
I mean, much respect. That's why we call him mid-major Matt on the podcast. That's what makes his contributions to the pod very, very valuable. And speaking of players that's returning, I didn't mention this player because he gets his own segment on this.
He's
And
special.
he's a very special segment on this. He should feel very honored because not every player gets their own segment, even though they kind of do.
They do sometimes.
I'm trying to talk his segment up, in case you haven't noticed. But Coleman Hawkins made some very interesting comments when he decided to take his name out of the NBA draft and come back to college. But he made it very clear that he would not go back to Illinois. He's not going to go to a Big Ten school or a Big East school. And he says he wants to go to a school with a good football team. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
So he's either going to the Big 12 or the ACC, I guess. that limits it down considerably. But yeah, I mean, after playing in the Big Ten for that long, would you want to go play in the Big Ten anymore if you had the choice? I
The,
would
bla-
not.
the
I
black and
even
blue
want to go.
division?
Yeah, where if you're a big guy, you're competing with Zach Edey and the referees, and now Omar Ballo and God knows who else on the refs aren't going to call it. Yeah, no. And I wonder if what happened in the NCAA tournament factored into not wanting to go to the Big East as much as the lack of football did, because getting 30-0 run in seemingly like no time at all, I think kind of changes your opinion of the conference.
Yeah, I don't want
That
to go
being
against that team again.
No, I don't want to play that team twice a year. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, the rumor has always been North Carolina with him, and I don't know how good North Carolina football is this year. They've seemingly lost everybody. But I mean, Louisville's always been rumored to be around, and we know they have they've got a pretty good football team this year. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm thinking he'll probably end up on an ACC team. Be interesting to see if it's Louisville, North Carolina, or somebody completely different, or who knows? Maybe it is a Big 12 team. But I'm trying to. When you give criteria like that, and now the speculation becomes like absolutely insane. It's like, well, who's good in football this year? Is it Kansas? 'Cause, I mean, they do have a pretty good football team, so it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. But, I mean, yeah, I don't blame a guy at all for not wanting to get, like, beat up every night to get a double-double and then not get drafted, so this is just one of those things where it's player power again, and, you're happy to see it, but the flip side of that is now we have to speculate. So I'm sorry if that's annoying to people like Coleman Hawkins, but that's what we do, man. We just speculate on who's going where.
I'm going to take this take even a step further. Matt,
Uh oh.
he's going after the money. That's what this is about.
Well,
What
that's
rule
true.
just got passed this summer? Athletes can get paid like employees. What schools bring in the most money? The football schools. This is way deeper than tailgating, I promise you. He's going at this is a money move. I mean, we're not talking about him tailgating, enjoying football, a football game like, a lot of people are taking his comments. This is a money move right here. And I think this is he's more than likely going to go to an SEC school. I know, like you said, North Carolina's got ties to recruiting Coleman Hawkins, and their front line would desperately need him. I don't think they have a player over 6'8". Duke has wings that are taller than their centers. So they could desperately use Coleman Hawkins' services. But I think this tells me he's going to go to an SEC school. He's going to go where the money's at. The schools that bring in the most revenue through the football program. So don't sleep on maybe a Georgia here. Actually, look, he might go to a Texas. You never know. Texas is in the SEC.
Spots open. That's true.
I'm just saying. Like I said, and we're not making any rash assumptions that this is where he's going to go. We're just making our best predictions. But yeah, this is a money move through and through for me for Coleman Hawkins.
If he goes to Ole Miss, we'll know it was a tailgating.
That's true. Hotty toddy.
We'll know that was a tailgating if it's Ole Miss. And
Do you think Ole Miss has the best tailgating scene in college football?
I don't know. I've never actually been to a tailgate. It just always looks so
Wait,
delicious.
to a tailgate?
Yeah, I've never done that.
Matt, we got to get you out more, my friend.
I just like grilling at home, where I just sit there and listen to the radio.
Okay, I'm a homebody myself now, but like we got to get Matt to a tailgate just so he can experience it one good time.
I don't. I don't think I'd have as fun of a time as you think.
I bet you would.
Well, as long as there's
Well,
food.
okay, you probably wouldn't if the cornhole boards came out and I stomped you.
I don't like cornhole, man. I hate
How are you
cornhole.
from Indiana and Kentucky, really, and you don't like cornhole? That is wild behavior.
I don't like cornhole. I don't like beer particularly.
I'm 2 years sober now. I don't blame you.
I'm more of a bourbon and whiskey guy whenever I do choose to drink. I don't really like loud noises, so that's why. That's another reason. I've also never played euchre. Everyone always talks about euchre. I've never played euchre.
Euchre's overrated.
I've never played euchre. So that's part of the reason why too. I bet is because like I don't like half the things that are associated with tailgating, but I do like burgers, bratwurst, and hot dogs. So
Well,
I
there you
got that.
go. Go for the food and just hang out and chill with people. I mean, most tailgates aren't really too loud, really.
Unless the team loses the game, then things get pretty bad.
Well, that's when you just dip out of there.
That's when you flee in terror and pray you're wearing the right colors. Oh
You know,
no, I wore my blue shirt to the Louisville game.
eh,
Ah,
have you seen that guy on social media who goes around like wearing opposing team colors to like every college football game just to like film the reactions of like all the fans that the fans give him?
no,
Bro,
but
that
I've
guy,
seen those
that
things
guy,
a
that's a
lot.
brave individual right there.
I know he's doing it for the Vine, but man, I don't see how you're alive after doing that. I know Vine doesn't exist anymore.
I would say I'm surprised you even remember Vine.
Damn, Les, back at it again with the white hats. I see.
That's right. Damn, Daniel. That's I remember that stage so well.
Road work ahead. I sure hope it does. I still quote that all the time. I I am incredibly lame, but I remember certain things quite well. But yeah, no, I hate cornhole. I hate cornhole.
I'd hate it too if I just got stomped by somebody the whole time. But that's how I got really good at it.
You have to get stomped at
What
cornhole.
is your stance on beer pong though?
Uh, beer pong. I don't know how you play it. I've heard of it.
You
I don't
literally
know.
shoot ping pong balls into cups.
Oh, so you shoot you drink it after the ball's been in
Okay,
there?
well, a lot of us
Cool.
don't. We don't. A lot of us don't really drink the beer out of the cups anymore. But
Okay, okay. Well,
it's
that's a
more.
little
It's
bit
become a little more sanitary over the years. Like, don't get me wrong, I did it plenty in college, but like, especially now that I'm sober and I still play beer pong, I definitely don't. We just fill the cups up with water.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know how you played it. I just thought it was like you threw a ball or I knew there was a ball. Well, at first when I was a kid, I thought you played ping pong while drinking, and I was like, that just seems like it would be a bad idea. And then with the paddle, you're trying to swing it.
Okay, how many drinking ideas are good ideas though? Honestly,
How many drink?
they're never
Probably.
supposed to be good ideas, but you end up having
That's
a great
true.
story
That's
afterwards.
true. You end up with those beer goggles on, and the next thing you know,
I wouldn't know. Been sober for 2 years, but
I,
but I'm still
I'm very
undefeated in
proud of
beer
you for
pong.
that. You would definitely kick my ass in beer pong, considering I've never done it. So I have no
And like,
doubt.
dude, when I back in like especially my early college years, I used to compete in tournaments for money.
There are
And
tournaments for this?
yes.
Oh my god!
So also, real quick before we get to the next topic, do you remember, you probably never went, but do you remember that there was a very popular bar on 4th Street Live called Sully's? Do you
Yes,
remember
I do
anybody?
remember the bar. I remember the bar. I've walked past it before.
Yes. So the one of the last weekends that Sully's was open, they had a
Mm.
pong tournament and the winner just got free drinks for the night. And of course, you're a college kid and you're still drinking. Obviously, like you're gonna try to win free drinks anywhere you can get, right? So
Mhm.
me and my buddy like enter the tournament. And keep in mind, my buddy outside of that night is the worst pong player in the history of beer pong. But for whatever got into him that night, he got on my level. Like we were straight Shaq and Kobe in this shit. Like we literally beat everyone to win the tournament for the free drinks. And then just for shits and giggles, we kept playing, kept winning. And I mean, we're getting ignorant with it at this point. After we won the free drinks, like after we won, like we did not take anything seriously and we're still beating people. Like I'm literally dribbling the ping pong ball like a basketball before I shoot. We even had my one friend like stand off to the side and we'd be like passing him the ball, he'd be passing it back to us where we'd shoot for an assist. Like we were just ignorant with it. And we kept beating people so bad that the manager had to come to us and tell us to get off because we were making people mad. And of course, I'm pretty drunk at this point, and I'm like, well, if they're going to get that mad about it, they just need to beat us, right? I mean, that's what that tells me. Do better.
So what happened after that? Did you quit or were you kicked out or
I didn't have a chance. I mean, they just told me to get off, so
oh,
couldn't really.
they
Yeah, I
didn't
mean,
give
I
you
didn't get
the
kicked out. I
option.
didn't get kicked out of the bar. No,
Okay, they didn't give you the option for one of like those epic Kingsman style brawls then, huh?
no. But anyways, we got about 10 minutes left. That we kind of got carried away on that sidetrack, but we got more topics to talk about. So surprisingly enough, as if we don't have one class, recruiting class in basketball, that's surprising with Rutgers. We have another one at Arizona State who has the number 3 recruiting class in the country. So, Matt, what are your overall thoughts on the job Bobby Hurley's done this offseason?
You know, Les, I'd leave most of the recruit stuff to you, but I am quietly impressed by the fact, two guys I do know very well, BJ Freeman transferring in from Milwaukee and Bashir Jihad from Ball State, two guys who I've had the pleasure of watching. Very underrated guys, will be very good in the Big 12 now. That's so weird to say. Those are the guys I know about. And I mean, I know about Sanon and I know about Jaden. We talked about Jaden before.
Yeah,
I
Jaden
know those
Canes. Yeah.
guys. But I know B.J. Freeman and Bashir Jihad a lot better, and I know those guys are going to contribute, and they are going to contribute right away. They've got size for their positions. They've got great offensive ball skills and pretty good defense. They're going to fold right in there, and they're going to help this stellar freshman group be even better at Arizona State.
So, my main takeaway from this is Bobby's trying to get like Lil Bro. And I saw a very interesting point on Twitter about this that I wanted to shed light on. This account seems to believe that Bobby is still the better X's and O's coach than Danny. Danny's just been put in better situations. And I think with that being said, this is the opportunity to prove that point valid. So That's just where I stand on that.
I would
But
agree
for,
with that.
yeah, I think that's a fair point.
New
Um,
conference, new breath of air.
right. And for time constraints, moving on to another topic,
Ah.
switching to college football. Mike Elko, the new head coach of Texas A&M, spoke out about a new walk-on rule that would potentially top a roster out at 85 players instead of potentially over 100, which would eliminate a bunch of walk-on programs. So, Matt, what are your overall thoughts on what he said?
I mean, I don't know much about college football in terms of the walk-on experience, but I'm as long as you've got guys who are college rosters have always been comically large to me. So I mean, as long as you've got guys who are willing to put in the work and show up at your practice and get manhandled and hammered by dudes who are all stars, and hell, maybe even a few of them end up being good players. We always love the best part of every year, it seems like, for college football media and press and PR is whenever like the coach like gives the kicker the scholarship at Christmas, and like they have the police officers or something come in and they act like somebody's in trouble, and then, oh no, you're just getting a scholarship. So that's always a nice tradition. So I'm with Mike Elko. You got to give people a chance to prove themselves. College football's always had comically large rosters. This could be one of those effects of the NIL era. But if they're walking on anyway, they're not going to get any NIL, and if they did, it would be from a donor. So let the kids do it. Just let them walk on, let them practice with the guys, let them make the team, let them do whatever they want. That's part of what makes college football one of the more unique than the NFL. You've got guys of all different sorts of levels and skill sets and experiences who are playing together as a team instead of the NFL where everybody could kick your ass. So yeah, let the kids walk on.
And I think for me, anytime you have a potential to like limit potential walk-ons, I look at all the great walk-on stories we've had over the years in college football, the Baker Mayfields, the JJ Watts, Brian Burlsworth. Hell, we might as well even eliminate the Brian Burlsworth Award if this happens. And
That's
I'm
true.
not really a fan either because I think these type of underdog stories are really what gets fans engaged even more with college football. So, you know,
Except Rudy. Terrible
except,
movie.
wow. I'm not surprised, but I am at the same time. I'm disgusted with you.
I'm going on a roll, man. I'm going on a roll. Cornhole, Pickles, Rudy, they're
Just
all going out the
you
window,
just hating on
man.
everything. It's wild.
You want to know
Well,
the biggest
something you don't hate on because this topic was yours and yours only. The Egg Bowl was moved to Black Friday. So Matt, this is your territory. Have at it.
Yeah, this is one of those things to me where it was interesting because it shows the power I think that the NFL is wielding now. And it's getting to the point where it's very scary because the Egg Bowl was always on Thanksgiving night. The NFL, it hasn't been super recent, but pretty recently, we've had the late night Thanksgiving NBC football game on the NFL or the NFL Network or whatever. And now we're like seeing like college sports being affected. In fact, they're moving to Black Friday in the afternoon, where the NFL also has a game, but it's on Amazon Prime only, which is a little bit more, a little bit rarer to find than just being on CBS or NBC or whatever network. So that's fascinating to me that college football is moving a historic rivalry game that's pretty legendary off of its normal time slot in favor of trying to break some new ground to, stay out of the NFL's way. And I just think that's really interesting. And this topic also gets me talk about the best college football moment of all time, which is when that guy acted like a dog on the field and cost the team the game. Because just thinking about that brings me instant joy. But yeah, it's always interesting to see now just how much power the NFL has in the American sports sphere. And this is just one of those huge examples, moving a historic ancient rivalry from its usual television position to a new one to avoid competition. So, yeah, I do like the move though, because I'm never able to watch it because I'm usually like debating in a food coma or watching the NFL game. So, I'm happy to see college sports get a little bit more of a nice spotlight.
And moving on to our last topic, kind of a much grimmer subject. Um, the college basketball world did suffer a loss this past week with the death of Bill Walton, who dies after his battle with cancer. And Matt, I think you had a very interesting connection that was made through all of this. So take it away.
Yeah, it's just wildly appropriate well, tragically appropriate that the Saturday before this happens is the last event, the baseball championship on the Pac-12 network, and they signed off as a network and essentially as a conference, Bill Walton's favorite conference, the Conference of Champions, and he dies just a few days later. I mean, it's a strangely poetic way for a guy who championed his conference, championed the sports of the West Coast, and did so much more than to go out that way. And I mean, people always have unique opinions of Bill Walton. I've always loved him. Any guy who can just go from talking about basketball to the traditions of whatever area they're in, the indigenous peoples, the history of it all, or even famously just start talking about the Grateful Dead during the Maui Classic, during an Indiana game, and interview one of the members of the band while pissing off the entire Indiana fan base. Bill Walton was just an amazing, fun broadcaster. And it almost makes you forget just how freaking good of a player he was, not just in college, but in the NBA. I mean, not many guys can say they played for John Wooden, won 80 ish straight games, and then beat Kareem Abdul Jabbar in his prime to let an expansion team to lead an expansion team to the NBA finals and win and then become one of the greatest six men of all time after injuries derail your career. So, I mean, Bill Walton was a hell of a player. He was a hell of a broadcaster, and he was a hell of a dude from what everything I've ever read. Reading Dave Pash's Twitter feed the day after he died just brought a tear to my eye because you could tell that he really cared about the dudes he worked with, even if he was dragging Larry Bird to the Eugene V. Debs Museum in downtown Terre Haute. But yeah, rest in peace, Bill Walton. You were too pure for this world. Eat all the candles off of all the cupcakes in the afterlife.
And I know I've been very critical of some of the commentating jobs that Bill Walton has done over the years, but this is something you never still want to talk about. Death is death, and life is precious, and you always got to respect, and you always got to respect the dead on this one. So, and I wish there could be more to be said for this, but I feel like this would be more Ryan territory because Ryan is a cancer survivor, and that is his story to tell. So, with him not being on this podcast, I'm gonna let him maybe talk the next time he's on if he wants to. But as always, like and subscribe to Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channel. Be sure to be sure to like and follow the social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Threads. And make great time today.
We did. Wear your Maui Jim sunglasses, folks. Wear your Maui Jims.
And remember, Jeff Van Gundy still looks like a turtle.